As you work in Photoshop, you will have the option to create and save images in a number of different file formats. The good news is we only really need to be concerned with a few of them. The first format we are going to take a look at is the one that you are going to run into most often, and that's the JPEG file format. Let's open one up. You go to File, then hit Open, and then in our project file, so I'll look for our project file folder, our project folder. Then let's open up the Fuji Hires image. Now, at the name of the document over here, we see .jpg, Fuji Hires.jpg. So JPG is the abbreviation for JPEG. Now, JPEGs have two big advantages. They create very small images. They take up very little spaces on your hard drive, and they are universally accepted. There's virtually no software on the planet that handles images that cannot read, open, or handle a JPEG image. You can open a JPEG in your web browser. You could even place a JPEG in your Microsoft Word document if you want to. So there's really almost nothing that you can't do with a JPEG in terms of putting it into other applications. The downside to this is that the JPEG achieves its great savings and file size by compressing your image. It's known as a lossy file format, meaning that it reduces the file size by throwing away information about your image. Now, let's take a look at how that works. With this image open, we are going to go to File, then Save As. As we are going to save a copy of this, we are going to keep the format at JPG or JPEG. So we will see that over a Save As type, then we click and then we select a variety of formats. So we'll keep ours at JPEG for the purpose of our demonstration. So I'll click on the Save button. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the other file. I'm going to hit Replace because we are actually going to stop before it overwrites it. So under the JPEG option dialog box here, we have a quality settings at 12, which is the maximum settings we can see. Below the preview checkbox, we have the file size of 1.3 megabytes. That's what we will get if we choose the maximum quality settings for JPEG. If, on the other hand, we drag the slider all the way to the left to get the smallest possible file size, we can see now under the preview box that our image size has been reduced to 58.5 kilobytes. You might think that, oh, okay, that's cool. Then I can reduce the sizes and get millions of this on my hard drive. But look at what happened to the image document window. With this preview button on, I will turn it off so you can see the image we started with. Now, if you pay attention to the image, you realize that something has changed with the image. Now it looks smooth and perfect. Now let me fit my image to our workspace. So Ctrl O. So now when I check this preview box, you realize that the image has been damaged, or it has been completely wrecked. When I click on it, we have a smooth one. So this is to preview our new quality. So I click to preview it, then I realize that taking the quality from highest, which is 12, and taking it to as low as 0, our image is being wrecked. Now we see very muddy waters. Our skies have blotches of cyan and magenta all through them, and it's just completely destroyed. So we have a very small size. That is great, but our image has been wrecked. Now, of course, you can go somewhere in between these two extremes. So in the middle, you could move the quality settings somewhere. So let's say it's in the middle now. Now we have a decent file size, which is 126.7 kilobytes. But you have an exceptionally good preview of the image. But that's the delicate dance that you will have with JPEGs. You can simply come here to this box here, and then in the menu you can choose between the quality you want. With JPEGs, either you get the smallest possible file size and the quality is bad, or you keep as much as quality you can, but you don't get much savings in file size reduction. Now let's just hit cancel. The second file format we are going to talk about is a TIFF format. This is also very popular. Let's open up a TIFF. We will go to File, Open again. In our chapter 1 folder, let's select the file called TIFF. Now, the great advantage of TIFFs is that they don't throw away image information. You are not going to get a small file size like a JPEG, but you are not going to lose any image quality. TIFFs also have the advantage of being able to store dynamic information in your image, such as layer marks, adjustment layers, 16-bit files. We are going to cover all this fun and super cool stuff in later chapters. All those can all be saved in TIFF format. None of those things that I just mentioned can be saved in a JPEG format. So once you really start to work in Photoshop and do amazing things with layer marks and adjustment layers, then you are going to be really looking at a TIFF file format. Let's see what happens if you go to create a TIFF or save a TIFF. We will go to File, then Save As. As we are going to select this, we are going to keep the file format at TIFF. We will hit the Save button, and like with JPEG, it's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the other file. I'm going to hit Replace because we are actually going to stop it before it writes. Under image compression, the first choice is none. That means that this TIFF format will apply no compression to the image. The file size will not get smaller, but we have not lost any quality. Now, here is the sort of magic button. Right below it is LZW. Now, this does apply some image compression, but it's a lossless compression, meaning you wouldn't lose any information. It will make the file size smaller where it can, but it will not throw away any information. How it does this can only be answered by the Adobe engineers and their super secret ways of committing algorithms to pixels. But the upshot is we can get a slightly smaller file size. We are not going to lose any image quality. It will be nowhere near as small as a JPEG, but every little bit can help. So you have those two great options for TIFFs. We will hit cancel for now. So we have JPEGs, we have TIFF. Now another lossless file format is the native Photoshop file format, which is a PSD. Let's go back to File, Save As, and this time for the image, instead of saving it as a TIFF, we are going to choose all the way up to the top, and then we select the Photoshop option. So if you want to change the file format, you come to this option, Save As Type, then you click, then you choose from this variety which file format you want. So for the purpose of this demonstration, we choose Photoshop. Notice that in the Save As Type box, the file name is now appended with PSD. That's the abbreviation for the Photoshop file document. Now, I don't want you to be under the impression that because you are going to be working in Photoshop, you have to save the file with a Photoshop file format. That is not true. We can think for our purpose of TIFFs and PSD files as being virtually identical. There's no one big advantage over the other. Everything that a TIFF can hold, a PSD can hold, and vice versa. The one advantage pointing to a TIFF, and one reason why I recommend it, is that it is more universally recognized than a PSD file. Obviously, Photoshop can read PSD files, but if you have to ever open the image up in another program or place it in another program, sometimes they can't read the PSD files. But the chance of programs reading TIFFs are pretty good. It may not be quite as universal as a JPEG, but it's a close second. Let's just cancel out of that. Those are the three files formats that we are really going to be talking about with photorealistic images. One file format that may be familiar to you web designers on this channel is the GIF format. GIFs have one big downside. However, it has a very limited color palette. We spoke in the first lesson about how images can hold millions of colors, with all the permutation of red, green, and blue that each pixel can have. A GIF can only hold 256 colors in any given image. So if you are doing photographs or any other photorealistic images with smooth, subtle gradation, you really want to stick with either JPEGs, TIFFs, or PSD if you want. But I'm going to recommend TIFFs for that purpose. Okay, thank you for being with me through another tutorial. I hope you've been able to learn something. Catch me in our next tutorial and let's keep on learning. Do not forget to smash a like on the video and subscribe.